been pretty clear over the last several quarters, let alone some momentum that's been building over the last several years, that we've been moving away from a service-centered economy towards more of one that's centered around ideas.
There's an ever bigger need for this kind of a debate that says, you know, how are we going to shape our future? Because we now know through innovation and through creativity and through data and through science and through technology that we can actually shape our future.
You know, it's kind of like trying to move across a monkey bar with one hand on one side and one hand reaching for the next bar. You can't really firmly let go of the left hand until you've got a grip on the right, otherwise you'll fall. Unfortunately, it's just not how it works. You've got to fly. You've got to let go of the first one before you get your hand on the second one. Startups and companies that are not incumbents in a market are much more capable of taking those risks and innovating than any incumbent could ever be.
If you look at the companies that have been the greatest successes over the last several decades, they've all been driven by innovation.
We very much believe that innovation has to be at the core of what we do.
It's very liberating. It's really liberating to come from a place of like, you know what, I can mess up 100 times. And there are all the cliches about it, but it's really true. And I think in product design and in development and in the world that, I play in, it's very much about taking risks. And you see all these companies that start going up and up and up because they don't have this enormous distribution or this huge financial model, or they're not public, so they have the ability to take the risk.
You really have to have a culture that embraces risk and understands that 100% success will not be likely when you're taking risks. But fortunately for us, that has really been the spirit of the organization.
In a traditional company, there's a real hierarchy. And hierarchies, I think, by definition, are an enemy of creativity, because creative and innovation, almost by definition, is about taking some forms of risk.
I must have sat in hundreds of different classrooms over the course of my 8 years working for Apple. We'd be in these classrooms and we would have put $1,200 laptops out onto the desks of students. I'd be sitting there and I'd be excited for this sort of moment that was about to happen where the students would engage with the technology and start learning in new ways, and instead the teacher would say, open your textbooks to page 350, and I would think, oh, what a lost opportunity.
How do we take the tech revolution to a new level and marry creativity, which has been the missing agent, with technology to drive a whole new level of what business and society and culture can look like? Technology and ties in with creativity. I think 10 to 12 years ago, technology was about a lot of the oohs and ahs, and it was kind of like hidden away with just engineers. But I think now, everybody's kind of embraced technology. When I look at my 73-year-old mom who's on Facebook now, I think it's the idea, though, that it's how do you take technology and really apply it to real-world applications. So it's not so much about oohs and ahs, it's about functionality. We've gone from, isn't that kind of cool, to wow, that really works and solves a problem.
And I think it's a really exciting time because good creative can come from anywhere, whether it be a kid on YouTube or an award-winning director that's doing your spot or creative or content or even your website. So even technology, now we have access to some of the best developers.
The notion of the imagination economy, I think, has been building over, I think, a number of years. I mean, I think that you are now seeing it be rewarded more inside of organizations than ever before, because they realize that if we can dream it, we can actually build it. I really find that if you kind of create a box, you really, the tighter the box, the tighter the parameters, the most amazing kind of work kind of comes out of that. And, again, it's a bit of a cliche, but it really does seem to give, really challenge people. And I studied, all of my favorite brands, from like Porsche to a container store to, they're so freaking diverse. The only thing that they really have in common is a real clear understanding of who they are. And when you have that, even if you only have one product, it just seems like you can grow into, like, it's infinite how big you can become.
Companies tend to hire, and so do bosses. They hire like-minded, people who look like them, and because we're going to get along. And to your point about creativity, we can't do that anymore, because you don't get diversity of thinking and opinion by hiring people that look like you and come from the same place you do. We have to start, at every level, at the global level, at the company level, at the individual level of how you take information in. It has to be you have to cast your net much wider.
it is core to any great company. It doesn't matter if it was 9X in the 60s or if it's Inkling in 2011, that you have that clear vision that gives a frame of reference to everything you create and all of the creativity that occurs in your company. Because if you don't have a clear vision and you know that you're sort of relentlessly building toward that, two things can happen if you don't have the vision. Number one, the creativity that occurs in the organization is misguided. The second thing that happens if you don't have that crisp vision for what your team is trying to do is that you end up defending what you've got. And when you defend what you've got, you have a completely different mindset. You don't play offense and play defense at the same time.
We thought about growing a company that customers really cared for, that brands wanted to work with. It had to be more than just the product. It had to be about the feelings. It had to be about the surprise and delight, again, that it creates. And also a big part of it, now that we've been doing this for a year, is the conversation that it creates between customers.
You know, consumers really react to storytelling and that beauty of, people want to be sold a lot of times. And so we have to give them that feeling, that excitement where, a purchase that's only $2, make it feel like it's buying a car.
An experience, and it's a brand experience that you can enable through technology, and the press around that is invaluable. So it becomes like a 30-second spot where I tell you what we think, or we create an experience like that creates sort of its own momentum.
I'm seeing that in everything from the objects we put in our homes to the things we wear. It's, there's a story to be told, and that people are understanding the value of that. So they're looking for stories.
We use consumers as our compass. We don't always point north after listening to them, but we want to use them as a compass.
It's not even just about how do you communicate, but I think it's really about how do you collaborate? How do you bring people into bringing that vision to life and at the same time becoming advocates of whatever that concept is?
Whether it's meet for a lunch, meet for a drink, have a meeting, where even if we don't have a specific agenda, I find just talking through some of the daily challenges I'm facing and getting the conversation going leads us usually to, wait a second, why aren't we doing this? We should have been talking a long time ago.
I absolutely listen and iterate and go back to the customer to understand if what we're doing is what they want. But you've got to have this sort of sense of vision to take the risk to be way out in front of what your consumer would ever ask for.
And it goes beyond just getting stuff. It's about the experience itself and about how people feel, and being able to be much more clever about coming up with an engaging experience, measuring that and improving it. And there's a mission in that that's beautiful, actually.
For me, that kind of same, I would say, enthusiasm that we had about going to the moon is now back in a way in our economy. I think that's being driven by imagination and creativity. And I do think that some of the newer, younger organizations are proving that, you can build just as big of an organization, in 5 years as it took for people to build in 100 years now. And that's something we've never seen before.
I know that when we need to get to the frontier, the logical, rational thinking will only get us so far. Imagination is what gets us to the next level.